7 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to Innovation Credit Union's annual meeting and first information session on our journey to become a federally regulated credit union. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bruce Sack, President of the Board of Innovation Credit Union, and I will be your MC for tonight. Our board and executive management are looking forward to sharing Innovation's progress in 2016, as well as discussing our exciting future vision with you. 2017 marks our 10th anniversary as a credit union, and we look forward to serving you for many years to come. In the hopes of giving as many Innovation members the opportunity to participate tonight, we are pleased to offer live streaming via our website. We also have members joining us from other locations, including Gravelburg, Meadow Lake, and Swift Current. So a warm welcome to every member in attendance. We published the notice of annual meeting in local publications in March. Copies of the ads are available upon request if anybody would like to review them. I'd now like to introduce our head table. To my right, Chief Executive Officer Dan Johnson. Laurie Carrier is at the far end, the Executive Assistant who will be your recording secretary tonight. Ian MacArthur, next to Dan, Chief People Development Officer. Darlene Kingwell, Chair of the Corporate Governance People Committee, and Gordon Lightfoot, Chair of the Audit and Finance Committee. I'd also like to introduce the rest of our board for you. First of all, Mike Davis, our first Vice President. Just give a wave, please. Ian Twydale, our second Vice President. Jerome Brew, our third, no, we don't have a third Vice President. Gwen Humphrey, Russ Siemens, Brian Zanuck, and Dennis Perot. However, he stepped away from the board in September 2016 in order to pursue being the mayor of Swift Current, of which he was successful. He is now the mayor of Swift Current. I would also like to announce that Carrie Carson from Deloitte will be our parliamentarian for tonight. Carrie is right here. Other guests joining us tonight, representatives from Deposit Guarantee Corporation, Lloyd and Brent. Sask Central, of course, would be Russ Siemens, the chair of the board. Many of our neighboring credit unions from Connexus, Synergy, Prairie Center, Concentra Bank, and Unity Credit Unions. We thank you all for coming out and joining us tonight. Privileges of the meeting. We follow Robert's Rules of Order as well as meet all the regulatory requirements of the Credit Union Act. We ask that anyone addressing the meeting or making motions please use the floor microphones, both sides of the auditorium, and give your name prior to speaking so that we can record the name. People viewing our AGM from home can submit a question online, which may be asked on your behalf by our designated staff member, Perry Gardner, who is reviewing the site for questions. Members who are viewing our meeting from any one of our advice center locations can also ask your host to submit the question on your behalf to be answered. We will try to limit the number of questions to 2 per person, just so that everybody gets a chance to ask those questions. And if there are additional questions, we will circle back to them. I'll call on Ian MacArthur at this time to provide the numbers of members to confirm we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have the numbers confirmed for tonight. I can attest that we have 73 members present in North Battleford, 32 in Swift Current, 10 in Meadow Lake, and 14 in Gravelburg for a total of 129 members. Mr. Chair, I can confirm that we have quorum.
Thank you, Ian. The agenda for tonight's meeting is provided to you on the screen. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Have a motion, please. It's hard to see. Ian Twydale. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Brenda Zarowski. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. We handed out the minutes for the 2016 annual general meeting when you registered this evening. I need a motion to approve the minutes as circulated. Hard to see up here. Rosalie? It's really hard to see up here. I'm not sure if it's a glare off of this or what. Gwen seconded. Any discussion from the minutes? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. We will now present the President's report, the report on operations, and the Auditor's report. You can ask questions about any of the reports after the presentations are complete. Question cards are available at the registration table if anyone would prefer to use them. I'll then ask for a motion to approve all the reports at one time. I'll begin by presenting the President's report on behalf of the Board of Directors. 10 years ago, Southwest Credit Union and Battleford Credit Union Limited, operating as BCU Financial, joined together with Meadow Lake Credit Union to form Innovation Credit Union. The combined assets under administration at the time were just over $1 billion. They are now close to $3 billion. There were 308 full-time staff members. Now we sit at 359, including our insurance offices and credential personnel. The increase in digital usage by our membership has allowed us to maintain our staff numbers and still serve a much larger asset base. Innovation Credit Union, because of our members, staff, and management, has enjoyed another successful year. We are very fortunate to enjoy the loyalty of our membership that continues to contribute to our success, and the dedication of management and staff that ensure the wants and needs of our membership are met and often exceeded. We continue to survey the membership regarding member service, and the level of satisfaction seems to get better every year. Your board, through planning sessions with management, provide the strategic future direction of Innovation Credit Union. During our planning session last May, there was direction provided to management to pursue the option of becoming a federally regulated credit union. This decision was made regarding the future direction of the credit union so that we are sustainable long-term. Future direction and sustainability has been on the radar of our planning sessions for at least 5 years, and the success of the organization allows us to pursue an exciting road to sustainability into the future. Our CEO, Dan Johnson, will speak in detail regarding the rationale for our future direction later on the agenda. Your board supports continuous learning throughout the organization. And as a result, each board member has completed the training and exams through Credit Union Director Association to be certified, and 2 of our board members have achieved the professional director designation from the Institute of Corporate Directors. Along with that continued education learning that we support, 95% of our staff had some type of training last year for a total of 11,400 hours. And along with that, they also had a lot of time on their own time to provide about 13,000 hours of volunteer time in the communities that they serve. Because the competencies required to be an effective board member continue to evolve, all board members have been taking and will continue to take the necessary courses to enhance their skill set. We look forward to the coming year with excitement, the pursuit of becoming a federally regulated credit union, and the opportunity to live our name, innovation, our mission, and our vision. Thank you. I will now call on Dan Johnson to report on the 2016 operations.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for attending tonight, those who traveled and those who never. It is our 10-year anniversary, as Bruce indicated, so very exciting time for us. Coincidentally, we're the same age as the smartphone. I kind of like that scenario. This is a great time of year. It's the AGM season for all of the credit unions, so not only do we get to travel around and have great visits and food and some dessert, it's also a great time for us credit unions to showcase just all that we do, and it certainly is a lot. So I want to spend some time talking about innovation in 2016. Again, it's our 10-year anniversary, so some of the slides this year have a little bit more history to them, so I wanted to give you kind of some background as well. So I have my presentation, there'll be a few other business-related items, and then another presentation talking about our initiative to become a federal credit union. This is our vision and mission, and I think it's important to start a lot of these conversations with that. And the important thing for me is that our vision and mission wasn't just built by a few people that went off to a planning session. We actually built our vision and mission with feedback from our membership. When we reached out to our members, three things stood out to them. They wanted us to be very responsive, they wanted us to be mobile, and they also wanted us to provide great advice and guidance. We actually built that right into our vision and mission, feeling that if we can create a vision and mission or those long-term goals that are built by our members, then the likelihood of success would be greater. Also, very important to us, and we work really hard year in, year out to make sure that we align substantially with our cooperative principles. We believe there are strategic differentiators in this competitive landscape. So again, we really like to start off some of these presentations reminding the group of those key elements, those fundamental differentiators in this competitive industry. The balanced scorecard is something we've followed for a number of years. I really like the balanced scorecard. My view is that what it does is it obligates organizations and leadership to look at more than just returns. And at innovation, that's so important, right? We have people, we have members, we have a business to run, and of course we have to have appropriate returns to move forward as an organization, all the while paying attention to the risks that we have in our organization. So I've grouped the slides for my presentation around the balanced scorecard. So let's start with our number one asset, which is our people. So some of the ways we measure success in that area is around engagement. So we've worked really hard as an organization, given the amount of change that we've had as a system, as an industry, and especially as a company. This is something that we monitor fairly close, and we've seen the dial move this considerably. So as you can see, we're right in the moderate zone, very similar to what our peers would be at, and also the financial services industry. Our view at innovation is if you have an engaged leadership, that should equal engaged employees. Engaged employees means engaged members. So there's a really nice continuum that allows us to be successful as we move forward. So engagement is one area we look at when we're looking at how well we did as an organization. Another one we look at is our training. Again, we believe that if our members are looking for value, advice, and guidance, it's very important to invest in your people. So in 2016, we invested close to $750,000 in training and development. We had over 95% of our staff take some form of training, which equates to almost 40 hours per staff member. So again, we feel that it's a very important element for our success as an organization, and it's something that we monitor. So as you can see, we achieved the target and the goal that we sought to have in 2016. Volunteerism, again, we have the luxury of having a great staff group. We also have the luxury, I believe, is to quantify some of the work they do, not only during the day, but a lot of the volunteerism that our staff does is after hours. So as you can see, we have over 13,000 hours that we volunteered back into your community or back into the region. And it's an increase over 2015, which is important to us. The conversations that we've been having with a lot of volunteer groups is that they're seeing it more and more difficult to get those volunteers out. So one of the things we did a few years back is we offered a full day of a paid day off to go out and volunteer in the community, whatever is important to you as a staff member. We believe that was a kind of our effort to try and make sure that we still have, in this busy time as a society, still have the opportunity for our staff group to go into the community and volunteer and be effective contributors to the community. And as you can see, 91% of the staff are active volunteers at Innovation. Some other ways that we measure success is going to the other part of the balanced scorecard, and that's with respect to our membership, so around the growth aspect. So what do we look at there? A big part of our measure here is the Net Promoter Score. So it's a very simple process, but yet very sophisticated in that it gives us great feedback on how well we're doing as an organization. And we take that feedback and we blend it in or provide that to our planning process as an organization. So year in, year out, we take that feedback from our members so that we can respond and make sure that we're in line with what our members expect from us. So 2016 was another great year for us. As you can see, if you look at how well credit unions do when it comes to member satisfaction or that measure about promoting your organization, credit unions again come out on top. And so we're very proud of the system, very proud of Innovation for another year of great results. And as you can see, compared to others in the competitive landscape, we continue to rise to the top. So again, thanks to our members for the business, but also thanks to our staff group for doing such an excellent job when it comes to working with our membership. Another area that we measure in our organization is our investment back into the community. What we've done at Innovation is we've somewhat hard-coded that process right within our organization. So 2 to 4% of our pre-tax profit goes back into our community. So if you look at this 10-year graph, you can see how we've stayed pretty much within that zone. We think it's an important element as an organization, and the nice thing about this process, I guess, is that as we grow as an organization, as we become more profitable or earn more appropriate returns, then more goes back into the community. So I really like this process that we built here at Innovation. As you can see, in 2016, we gave back about $450,000, and over the last 10 years, $4.8 million back to the communities that we serve. One more thing I wanted to mention there as well is just the amount of other contributing elements, and that again goes back to the scholarships and also the volunteer hours, over 13,000 hours as well. Another way we measure success is growth around membership. So as the credit union system across Canada, this has always been something that we've looked at year in, year out. We feel we've found a pretty good way to ensure that we're growing as an organization. As you can see with this slide here, this gives you an idea of where we've really found successes when we launched the free account. Right? We've been able to ensure that we have growth as an organization moving forward. So if you look at, say, 2011 to 2016, we grew about 2.5% on our membership, where the population in our regions grew only 1%. So we're doing a pretty good job of being successful within our region. And I want to talk a little bit about that when we look at the slides around becoming a federal credit union as well. Well, let's move into Sheldon's favorite area, and that's finance. Again, another very important part of our balanced scorecard. We need to ensure that as an organization we're sound, we're successful, and we generate or earn what we call appropriate returns. So let's have a look at some of that. So from a deposit perspective, this gives you an idea of how well we're doing in generating new deposits. As you can see, year in, year out, we have more deposits than the year before. One of the things to take note of in 2016 is we grew about 5%, just over 5% deposits. But if you have a look at the red line, one of the things that we're watching is that year in, year out, that percentage of our overall balance sheet is getting lower. So as you can see here, when we grow as an organization, we're still having, from a per dollar perspective, more deposits, but as a percentage, it's going this direction. So it's something that we're very aware of, and again, I'll talk about that when we talk about becoming a federal credit union. And this graph over to the left here gives you an indication of the mix of our deposits. So we have a lot of deposits in our variable rate product. Those deposits fund growth, and as you can see, we've, from a year-over-year perspective, done a good job as an organization being successful in the region, both from an on-balance sheet perspective and also from an off-balance sheet perspective. So we're seeing good growth Last year was close to 9% when we combined both on and off. We were slightly shy of what we budgeted. However, again, another very successful year in 2016. That pie chart on the left gives you an idea of the mix of our assets, primarily our loans. And again, we found that a good balance for us is about half of our lending activity in that consumer market, and then the other half of that activity in that commercial and agriculture market. We believe it's a good balance for our organization. And when you bring that all together, it does allow us for some pretty good success when it comes to profitability. So as you can see, we did quite well in 2016 with a return on assets of about 0.78 after tax. Again, better than last year. We were a little bit shy of what we budgeted. However, through really good, I think, cost management, we came pretty darn close to budget. And again, I would have to say in 2016, another successful year. So this gives you an idea of all of the activity in our organization brought together in what I would say is a nice solid year from a profitability perspective. One thing that I do want to mention, though, is as we were going through year end and compiling things, one of the things we're watching pretty closely was the tax situation. So that one thing that we have started to work on and understand is, well, what is the impact of the change in the provincial environment on Innovation Credit Union? And it is substantial. So we're just starting to do some work on what that means for our organization. Once fully implemented, it'll be another about $2 million in additional tax per year. So right now we're working on an 8-year business plan, and if you were to take that throughout our current assumptions in that plan, it's just over a $20 million impact to our organization. So nothing minor with respect to the new tax environment as articulated in the recent budget. However, we believe that successful organizations should pay tax. We're not as keen on the scenario where from an effective or marginal percentage, we're quite a bit higher than what the banks would typically pay. But again, we're working through that information. I thought I'd throw that slide in just to give you guys an idea of some of the impacts that the recent budget had on our organization. So when you take the profitability, the tax element, what's left over at the end of the day goes into your capital, and in our organization we also share some of that profitability out to our members, and I'll talk about that in the next group of slides. But as you can see, our capital base is growing quite nicely. Depending on how you look at it, we've had some solid returns, which means it allows us to create a nice healthy balance sheet for our organization so that we can weather the storm if there's other situations like economic downturns or other things. So again, another positive year in 2016 with respect to building capital in our organization. As you can see, we put about enough aside to have about a 10.8% increase in our total capital base. This is just another glance or lens to look at our capital. We look at our capital base in a number of different ways. So as you can see, our capital base is well above the regulatory minimums and right in line with what we'd like to see from a policy perspective, an internal policy perspective at our organization. So let's go to another part of the balanced scorecard, and that's the risk piece. I got a couple slides here. Again, it was kind of a mixed bag in our regions that we operate with respect to things like the agriculture economy or the oil and gas. Our organization, so far has weathered the storm quite well, as you can tell by the results from the financial perspective and how much we've been able to set aside in our capital base. However, we do see some trending, kind of in maybe the wrong direction. So if you look at 2016 from a delinquency perspective, we did see some increase in delinquency. However, they're kind of concentrated in a few larger files, and when you look closer into those larger files, we're certainly not in a case where we see any kind of loss situations in there. But we do, as you can see on the right-hand side, we do want to indicate that we do see some increased level of risk in our portfolio. Something that we're on top of and well within our tolerances. And then the graph on the bottom gives you another indication of the level of impaired loans that we have in our organization. So we've worked hard over the last number of years to get into a really good spot, and it looks like in 2016 we're going to have some level of impairment just given the business that we're in. again, we believe we're in an area or a range that is acceptable in our organization. So let's have a look at the last part of our balanced scorecard, and that's the business element. So there's a number of things that go on in this part of the scorecard. What I'm going to focus on, though, primarily is the overall concept of efficiency. You'll see this slide again in another slide deck, but one of the things I wanted to show you guys as owners of Innovation Credit Union is that it's a very, very competitive environment out there. So if you look at this slide here, you can see the red line, which is essentially the interest rate margin for our organization. So that's the difference between what we would pay you as a depositor and what we would receive from those who borrow from Innovation, right? So as you can see, there's a pretty big difference when you look at, not too long ago compared to today. I remember when I first started in the credit union system and working with other credit unions, it wasn't uncommon to find a 4% margin out there. Today we're operating in around 230, 240 range, and that's a pretty big difference in a pretty short period of time. A big part of that is the competition that we see as an organization. If we were to have that 4% margin today, given the size of Innovation Credit Union, we'd have an extra $32 million to invest into things, pay for things, or put aside as an organization. So it's very substantial. What the credit union system, I believe, has done a really good job of is that blue line. Like, we've recognized that there is a drop in, the way that we operate as an organization, but we've also recognized that in order to be effective, we've also brought our costs in line as well. So you can see that blue line getting closer and now tracing and correlating with the drop in margin. So I think it's a very exciting slide in that we've effectively dealt with those competitive pressures, at the same time providing extreme value to our members. This is another way to look at it. We're a growing organization, so of course each and every year we typically will see an increase in the cost to operate our organization, whether that's people costs or general business type costs. However, the red line is the one that I find that stands out for us, in that as a percentage basis, we've done a pretty good job in growing into our structure. So as you can see from the red line, as a percentage, it's dropped nicely, although we're still increasing our cost base as we move forward. In 2016, I think the statistics are our revenue grew about 5.7%, our costs only 5.4%, which again allows us to have an effective return as an organization. Another way we look at that is efficiency, which essentially allows us to, really what efficiency indicates is that, well, what does it cost for us to earn, $1 in revenue? And as you can see here, it's about 70 cents for our organization. And that's a pretty good area to be in our opinion. And so in this part of the scorecard, we do talk about efficiency a lot. And, one of the reasons that we do is it's not just about doing our job as leaders of this organization and being prudent leaders of your organization, ensuring that we're cost effective. But the real essence of being efficient is it allows you to be profitable. It allows you to earn appropriate returns. And I use the word appropriate on purpose. It allows us to generate appropriate returns so that we have the ability to invest into the future. Because efficient organizations are very responsive. And remember back to our vision and mission, the feedback that we got from our members was, hey, we'd really like you to be more responsive as an organization. And again, this recipe that we have around efficiency allows us to do that. So it's a very important part of the equation that we have here at Innovation, and it allows us to do this. So I'm going to pace through a number of slides here. I promise it won't take too long, but efficiency allows us to do this. And I have a number of slides of things that are very exciting, things that allow us to be relevant for our membership today and tomorrow. And it starts off with things like PFM. So for free, what we do is we invested a couple, 3 years ago in this, and so we allow our members to have the ability to have a great budgeting tool right in their banking system, and again, for free. And again, that came out loud and clear from some of the things they're looking for from us, but also it kind of lines up really well with one of our cooperative principles. The other thing that we invested in was a thing called remote deposit capture. And just look at the success that we've had as an organization and as a system, where you can now take a picture of your check versus having to come down and cash it. In 2014, when it launched, it took off pretty good. We're actually quite excited about the results in 2014. But have a look at 2016. So we've gone from essentially our members taking pictures of checks about 600 times in 2014 to over 46,000 times in a short period of time. Again, a piece of technology or an initiative, an innovation that has allowed us to become more responsive and relevant for our membership. The other thing that stands out for us is the investment in a thing called the mobile app. Again, we're sharing a 10-year anniversary with the smartphone. This is now also on your smartphone. As an innovation member, we went from about 5,000 in 2014 to over 20,000. So if you're to look at it differently, we have 22, 23 locations, but now we essentially have over 20,000 locations because it's now resident on something that you guys use quite a bit. So it's a pretty important element. I give a lot of credit to our staff group in the work that they've done over the last couple of years, just demonstrating the value of this product if that's what you choose. Right? And one of the things I want to remind the group is that at Innovation, we want to build all of the channels that you want to deal with us in. That could mean physical location, it could be the app, it could be calling into our contact center. Again, those are the things that we want to make sure that we can afford and build into the future. And this is, again, one of the areas that we do that. We have innovation rooms in all of our locations. It allows us to video in with different parts of the organization, different locations. If you want to see an estate specialist and you're in Frontier, Saskatchewan, and we don't have an estate specialist there, we now have the ability to video someone in and give you that advice and guidance that you're looking for. Having appropriate returns allows us to do things like this. Actually build a branch, but only put wheels on it. So this MAC, or Mobile Advice Center, allows us to do everything we would typically do in a physical location, but we can take it anywhere that we want. Because our members kind of said, it'd be great if you were more mobile. We also know that in our region there's underserved communities that we can now drive this into and have a really good experience with our members and new members. I'll just kind of give you an indication. In the bottom right hand there, we opened up over 60 accounts in a 4-hour period, just in one community that does not have a financial institution. So it's been a really good, investment for us, investment for our communities, and also for our membership. We're at the stages of building another one. The other thing that this does for us is it solves a number of other things, whether we want to go to an auction or a fair or somewhere where our members would like to have us present. And then also from a continuity perspective. So one of the things we work really hard on at our organization is that we have an effective business continuity program. And for us to have that, we have to have certain things lined up in case there is some sort of a disaster or something happens at one of our locations. And now we have the ability to use this at any one of our locations. And we've also offered it up to the system. If one of our peers has a dilemma or an issue at one of their locations, then they can use this as well. So it gets us back up and running a lot quicker than traditional ways. So I'm going to wrap up here with a few quick slides and then also a video. And they're hovered around kind of three things. So another project, I guess, or a thing that we're working on is we're making sure that we're relevant in a number of different ways. We want to line up effectively with the cooperative principles that makes us different and also successful compared to the competition. We want to make sure that we're taking advantage of some of the programs that we have and making them more relevant. So as an example, our traditional program where we pay out part of our earnings to our membership, we believe that we've found a way to continue that success, but also add in a few more things. And we've tried to hard code that to the extent we can in our organization. So as an example, our free account. So at one point in the last couple of years, we decided to go down the road of offering a free account. We believe that's almost like real-time member value or real-time patronage. The essence of, rather than taking $9 or $10 out of your account and just not doing that. And it's important to us because if you look at some of the articles or the press recently on the banks, they're getting a lot of negative press around scenarios like upselling and cross-selling, and personally, it's a great thing for us because when your competitor is getting beat up in the press, it's a good thing. However, when I look back at our organization, we also had to look around and say, well, what is the practices like at Innovation? And we had a good, solid conversation around that. And one thing that stood out is that our biggest campaign over the last while is to move about 20,000 members into a free account. So that just gives you an indication of the difference of being a member of a credit union versus a member of the bank. Over the last 10 years, we've provided back to our membership over $20 million in patronage. And then on the right, again, as I mentioned, we've hard-coded a scenario where we give back 2 to 4% of our profits to our communities. That's over $4.8 million over the last 10 years. So as we look at this whole overall program, again, 2016 was the best year on record as far as shipping back to our members profits relative to the amount of business they do with us. We have a cash dividend as a part of that. We have a youth dividend that we have as a part of that. So it's been a really good, successful story for us. And we're actually looking to increase the frequency of this payment as we move forward. And if you were to look at the other part of the free account, not only do we not take a service charge out of your account, we also offer things like, free e-transfers. So just have a look at the graph at the bottom and how successful it's been in order for us to add value to our membership. And then, again, I talked about the community value. So what I'm going to do now is just go into a video that really summarizes what we do for our community, and I kind of want you to watch it and relate that to the other competition and what they do and, the approach they have to their communities. And then we have a few other business elements, and then we'll have a chance for some questions. So this is the third part of our member value equation.
Hi, I'm Dan Johnson. I have the great privilege of being the CEO of Innovation Credit Union. One of the best aspects of being a part of Innovation is how our community investment changes and impacts the lives of the people we serve. One of the stories that stands out for me in 2016 is our substantial investment in the Meadows long-term care facility. The reason that stands out to me is that not only does it serve the people in our communities, but all of the communities in our region.
I'm often asked why Innovation Credit Union focuses so much on community investment. The answer is simple. Caring for our community is absolutely at the core of who we are and who our members know us to be. We believe strongly in the cooperative principles, and these principles are our authentic difference. I'm proud to announce that in 2016, Innovation Credit Union invested over $455,000 into the communities and regions we serve. These totals supported over 300 organizations throughout the year, from Buffalo Narrows to Frontier. Here are just a few examples of the community groups we have had the privilege of working with.
The Grub Club is sponsored by Innovation Credit Union. We have a home-cooked meal on Wednesdays. We have usually 3-4 volunteers from Innovation Credit Union that come and help serve the kids. A portion of our children are in situations where they don't have adequate nutrition at home. So it's important for us to be able to provide that to them.
Every Wednesday, I come for about an hour and a half, and help out.
Innovation gets you out in the community and involved in the community, and I thought this was a great way to give back.
We couldn't offer what we offer without our connections in the community, as well as our partnerships and the people that continue to support us year after year.
The money goes towards maintenance and upkeep of the ring complex. We raise usually between $12,000 and $15,000 any given year. We owe it all to the sponsorship and the volunteers that come out and help.
Innovation Credit Union actually sponsors $2,000 to this event, so something that really goes a long way within this community.
I'm very proud to be part of Innovation Credit Union. They're very community-minded.
It's expensive to run community rinks, so it's great that they're doing stuff like this to keep them alive.
It's great for Innovation to be involved with the community. Obviously, it's just overwhelming, the support that they've given us over the past 9 or 10 years that we've been running it.
Our
old structure, which is located to the east, is starting to fade a little and get older, so it was time for a new structure anyways, and why not build one that's accessible to everybody. Innovation Credit Union helped us out in a number of different ways. They donated $1,200 towards the project itself. It just brings that sense of community and belonging, and I think that fits this project well because it's not only used by our students, it's used by the entire community.
My family's important and my community are important, and I think it ties the two together.
They're happy, we're happy. It's a win-win.
We just appreciate the support, and I know our students have loved the structure, and I know that the kids in the community in the evenings have also loved it.
Our concern for the community goes beyond our financial investment. It's also about how we invest our time.
In 2016, Innovation employees donated over 13,000 volunteer hours. You see them in the community as coaches, board members, and event volunteers. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than to walk into an event and look at the sea of green I Volunteer shirts.
It shows that we're doing what we say we do. We find community important and we're out in the community.
Even if it's our day off, we strongly believe in community and volunteering.
Credit union's really good for getting the community involved, and they sponsor a lot of things around town.
One of our credit union values is community and our caring about community, and this is just demonstrating that value.
Wherever we work or whatever we do, we should give it our all, treat it like it's our own, treat it better than it's our own. And I've always been that way, my members plus my building.
This amazing group also raised an additional $16,000 for local charities throughout the year.
On behalf of Innovation Credit Union, a special thanks to you, our members, for this amazing opportunity to give back.
Each time you conduct business with Innovation, you are giving us the ability to invest in local organizations and causes you care about. As we grow, so does our investment back into your communities. Innovation is embarking on an exciting journey over the next few years as we transition towards becoming a national credit union headquartered right here in Saskatchewan. Our goal is to grow your credit union nationally. This growth will ensure continued long-term community investment offered by the friendly local staff you know and trust.
I'll now ask Carrie Carson, Senior Manager from Deloitte, to now present the Auditor's Report. And right after the Auditor's Report, we're going to ask for questions from our satellite locations. And after the appointment of auditors, we'll then have questions from the floor here in North Battleford on the reports. Carrie?
Good, thanks. I would like to thank the members and management for choosing Deloitte as their professional services provider and for the support provided by management and staff during the 2016 audit. I'll jump right into the auditor's report here. We have audited the consolidated financial statements of Innovation Credit Union, which comprise the consolidated statement of financial position as at December 31st, 2016, as well as the consolidated statement of comprehensive income, changes in equity, cash flows for the year ended, and a summary of significant accounting policies and explanatory information. Management is responsible for the preparation of these consolidated statements in accordance with IFRS, and as well for internal controls. Our responsibility at Deloitte is to express an opinion on these statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. In our opinion, the consolidated statements present fairly in all material respects. There is one emphasis of matter paragraph in the audit report this year. This doesn't modify our opinion. However, we want the users to draw attention to note 20 of the statement, which just explains that certain comparative information for the year ended 2015 has been restated. That's all from me.
Thank you, Carrie. Gordon Lightfoot, Chair of the Audit and Finance Committee, will now present the Board's recommendation for the 2017 Auditor.
Thanks, Bruce. And on behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to thank the firm of Deloitte for their service in 2016, especially thank Val Watson, managing our partner in charge, and Carrie Carlson, the senior manager who led the innovation audit process. So thank you for that. And I would like to move that Innovation Credit Union appoint Deloitte as the auditors for the year 2017.
Can I have a seconder for that motion? Ian Hamilton. Any discussion from the motion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. We'll take time to answer member questions on any of the reports. For those of you joining us from other innovation venues, our designated staff member Perry Gardner is now reviewing the site for your questions. For those of you in North Battleford, the floor is now open for questions. Please use the microphones and give your name when asking a question. If any of the questions that arrive are related to the plans for continuance as a federal credit union, we will defer those until after the presentation under agenda item number 15. Any questions? I'll now ask for a motion to adopt the Board of Directors, Auditors, and Operations reports, please. Brian Zanuck, seconder. Jerome Brew. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. We will now call on Ian MacArthur, Chief People and Development Officer, to present the proposed bylaw changes. Following the presentation, we will be asking for a motion that the existing bylaws of Innovation Credit Union be rescinded and replaced with reviewed attached bylaws. All members should have received a copy of the new bylaws as well as a green voting ballot. We have scrutineers assigned at each streaming location and at this meeting in North Battleford. Our scrutineers will be Carrie Carson from Deloitte and Christina Garczynski, Assistant Vice President of Accounting Services here in North Battleford.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will quickly review the proposed bylaw changes, just about a high-level overview of the proposed changes, and then we'll take any questions at the end. So first things first, why are we looking at making some changes? Really 4 reasons. First of all, we want to ensure that we have alignment with the Credit Union Act. So this year, as we did a thorough review of our bylaws, we noted a few places where there was minor discrepancies between our bylaws and what was required of the Act. So really, the Act is overseeing. So we want to make sure those were consistent. So we made just a few tweaks there, and I'll note those. We want to make sure we have the opportunity to allow for effective governance. We need to provide our board with the ability to govern effectively while placing appropriate structure around the governance principles. So you'll see a few things today that we have, we are recommending that will help us govern more efficiently and in line with the expectations of the regulators. And that comes to the next point. Regulators are constantly monitoring and making changes to ensure that the Canadian financial services industry remains the strongest in the world. We need to amend our bylaws, policies, and practices to ensure that we are meeting and exceeding their expectations. And then there's a few what I call general housekeeping. These are everything from punctuations to just small changes in wording, not material, but as we open up the bylaws, it's a good time to fix those up. So if you want to follow along, the first is on page 1. We've just added one term to the defined terms. That term is key management person, which means that includes an individual who is employed in an executive management position in the credit union or is a director of the credit union. And I'll focus later on where we've used that key management person in the bylaw changes, but we had to have that definition included in the bylaws. On page 3, number 5.3, we have made a couple additions to the qualifications of directors. We have added that the director may not be a spouse or a person involved in not be the spouse of a person involved in legal proceedings against the credit union, any of its affiliates or subsidiaries. And we've also added that they must not be a spouse of a key management person, circling back to what I mentioned a minute ago, of the credit union. These are two pieces just added, recommended changes that are recommended to all credit unions to avoid situations where a spouse may be seeking board election and a person may be seeking board election and there may be a conflict of interest with legal proceedings within the family. Page 4, 5.4, around nominations of directors. A couple small amendments there. These are some of those housekeeping items that I spoke of earlier. The amendment around A, the board of directors will advertise the opening and closing date for the nomination of directors, which shall be set at least 60 days prior to the annual meeting. In the previous, that was quite a large definition that really said the same thing, so we've cleaned that up to make it nice and clear. And the second one, we've made some changes there. Nominee must sign a nomination paper confirming the nominee meets the eligibility requirements of the Credit Union Act and the bylaws. Before, there was some extra verbiage in there requiring a returning officer to receive nomination papers and an eligibility requirement verification process that was somewhat lengthy. Again, this just streamlines to a more efficient progress and aligns with the Credit Union Act. 5.5, conduct of elections. Really here we've taken the opportunity to make it easier to engage members and for you, the members, to participate in elections and the democratic process. The first one, the voting period shall be set annually by the Board of Directors and shall not be less than 7 or more than 21 calendar days. We did have a discrepancy between our bylaws and the Act there, so this just now matches the Act. If we go down to H, this is one we've amended. Previously, the bylaws stated that you had to vote for the exact number of directors that there was positions open. So therefore, if there was 2 positions that were currently open and you only felt comfortable voting for one person for whatever reason and you didn't vote for 2, that ballot would be spoiled. This act allows you to, if you only chose to vote for 1 and there was 2 open, your vote would still count. So this allows for that amendment. And the final one, I, we've allowed, if a meeting is scheduled at which business is to be conducted during the voting period of election of directors, the credit union is permitting electronic voting. A member shareholder should be allowed to participate in such meetings by means of telephonic, electronic, or other communication. This just, again, provides us more ability to have meetings during the election period if one was called and allow people from different locations to participate. So if this was actually in the election period, the people in Gravelbourg, Swift Current, Meadow Lake would be active members of the meeting. So again, just allows us to engage our members a little more freely. Next one, 5.6, page 5. This is the most significant change, I would suggest, that we are making in the bylaws, so I'll spend a minute here. We've amended to, after the expiry of the initial term, all directors will be elected for a 3-year term. Historically, we had a limit on a number of terms there. So at one point, credit unions moved away from having open-ended terms and had a maximum number of terms. And so our bylaws currently say that you can run or be elected for 4 consecutive terms, at which point you must step off the board for at least a year before running again for a position. So this was done at one point to mitigate concerns of long-time board members, no turnover or churn on the board, which at one point was seen as, not a good thing. That was, preventing people from running. You end up getting the same people on the board for, 20, 25 years, and as a governance practice, that was concerning. Today, we are recommending removing this restriction. This is to align with where the regulators are going, and it's along with the principle of thinking, if you have a strong board member with lots of experience, why would you require them to step down? Instead, we're replacing the requirement to step down with good internal governance practices. So we are being very effective in looking for qualified people. We're being trying to engage as many members as we can around possibly running for the board. We're looking for people that will fill gaps or vacancies that we have in expertise and competencies, and then bringing a slate of candidates forward and having elections. So this really allows us to have a little bit more freedom as far as people on our board and use internal practices rather than prescribed bylaws to ensure we have appropriate turnover and change on our board. 5.7, a removal of directors, hopefully one that we never have to use, but we need to have appropriate clauses in our bylaw around removing directors if required. These are just a couple minor changes made in here regarding wording, nothing significant, but just making sure that we align with the Act and some common principles as recommended by Sask Central, or practices of Sask Central around this clause. The final one, or second, I guess, we have a couple more here. 5.9, a remuneration on page 6, provides for the option. We made a change in here to provide for an option for a monthly retainer fee for what I guess you call everyday work, preparation, reading, etc. So before, the bylaws very much talked about a per diem. Directors would be paid, submit claims on a per diem every day that, they track their hours, days of work, and this type of thing for sort of preparation, whatever they might be doing at home outside of meeting time. This will allow us just to pay a flat fee to cover that time on a monthly basis. 6.3, location, again allowing for more flexibility in hosting member meetings. This will allow us to have a single meeting with people in various locations or various meetings at different times. So really the changes here, meetings of the credit union may be held at more than one location, which we have today. If approved by the board, meetings may be held separately or simultaneously at more than one location. Where arrangements are made for members to participate in the meeting through electronic, video, telephonic, or other communications, such a meeting is considered to be a meeting in one location. So currently the bylaws spoke to allowing that for annual meetings, but not all meetings of the credit union. This allows for that, along with the changes in 6.4. And finally, the last one, page 9, we've made some amendments to point 12 around the amended allocation of the surplus. I won't go into details here. There's just a few minor changes, but what this allows us is to do a few neat things as part of our member rewards program. One is we can now have periodic or quarterly payments, which is something that we are looking at, where we will start paying our member rewards on a quarterly basis rather than an annual basis, so that you as members get your rewards more quickly from the membership. So this would allow us that ability. This also ensures that closed or not active memberships are not receiving allocations. There was some discrepancy in there, whether you closed your membership halfway through the year, how those were paid, or how that was paid. This cleans that up, and it just aligns with our model bylaws and current best practices. So at that point, that is the quick and dirty of the exciting but important bylaw changes. Is there any questions from any of the locations? And Dan, you can just, see if any come in. If not, Mr. Chair, I will hand it back to you to ask the question.
Okay, we'll ask for a motion that the existing bylaws of Innovation Credit Union be rescinded and replaced with the bylaws as circulated and presented. If someone would make that motion, Bill Volk, seconder. Can't see you. Okay, right. Any discussion, comments? All in favor of the motion? The green cards? Keep your hands up, please. good to go. Did you get? We're good. So the motion is carried. Pardon me? Yeah. Oh, numbers. Okay. What was the number so I can tell everybody else? 66. Which?
34 from remote locations.
Okay. Okay. So 100. 100. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Darlene Kingwell, committee member of our Corporate Governance and People Committee, will give an election update. Actually, she's the chair of that committee.
Good evening, everyone. The Board of Directors, through the Corporate Governance and People Committee, conducted our board elections process. The first meeting was held on October 11th, 2016, at which time the board nomination kit and nomination forms were reviewed, as well as the timelines for the election process. Candidates with expiring terms included Jerome Brew and Ian Twydale from District 1, and Gwen Humphreys and Dennis Pro from District 2. The call for nominations was advertised through all local newspapers, as well as through electronic newsletters and in-branch and social media in each of the advice centers of Innovation Credit Union. The committee met on January 30th, 2017, at which time the nominations received were opened and the final arrangements were made to proceed with the Credit Union Executive Society, CUIT's, e-vote. Nominated as candidates to the Board of Directors was in District 1, Jerome Brew, Colin Evans, and Ian Hamilton, and for District 2, Gwen Humphreys and Morley Kirshner. Due to only 2 candidates in District 2, Gwen Humphreys and Morley Kirshner, were elected by acclamation. Voting for the candidates in District 1 was conducted utilizing the CUITs, or e-vote, and in-branch voting. Voting ran from March 6th to March 24th. The results of the voting were compiled by the third-party resource CUITs. The candidates with the highest numbers of votes will acquire a 3-year term. There were 248 ballots cast, 224 online and 24 on paper. Of the paper ballots cast, 8 were declared spoiled. The candidate receiving the highest number of votes and accepting a 3-year term and declared elected is Jerome Brew and Ian Hamilton. Please join me in congratulating Jerome and Gwen back to the board and welcoming Morley and Ian to our board of directors. Please stand to be recognized, please. I would also like to thank Colin Evans for letting his name stand in the election process. We appreciate your interest in obtaining a position on the Board of Directors and are always pleased to see interest from our membership. Please stand to be recognized. I believe he's here today. Oh, Colin's wasn't able to make it. Well, let's give him a hand for doing that. I would now ask for a motion to accept the election results and destroy the ballots. It's moved by Tim and second by Dean. Sorry, I can't see out there very good. All in favor? Carried. Welcome. We will be making a donation in the amount of $496 to the Saskatchewan Hospital New Beginnings in North Battleford, based on 248 votes cast and a decision to donate $2 per votes cast. So another way of giving back to the community. Now, Bruce and I we would really like to call upon Ian Twydale to come up. and because he's decided to retire from the board of directors. And Ian, can you come up, please? Pardon me? Yes. And Brenda, would you come up too? I'll start telling you about Ian and Brenda as they make their way. Well, mostly Ian. Ian has served on the board of Meadow Lake Credit Union from 1995 to 2007, and then he left the board for 1 year, but he could not leave us for long, so he returned, and he began his next term from 2008 until 2017. He was very involved in the credit union system, serving as SAS Central Delegate on the Executive Committee and a strong supporter of our future direction. He is being presented with a small token of appreciation for his years of service, as well as a gift to wife Brenda, who supported Ian along with all his credit union for the past 21 years. So, Ian, I'd like to present you with this, before I say a few more words. And Brenda, we have something for you. Look at this. Yes, I will. I was going to say, can I have a hug too, Brandon?
Later.
I'm just going to say a few words about, and then I'll unleash Bruce. Traveling with Ian over the years, I really think that if you put people in vehicles and have them drive for 2 or 3 hours in one direction and then load them up and have them drive in another, that you solve a lot of the world's problems. And you really get to be friends. So what I know about Ian is hard to just put in a few words, but I thought about it and I think he loves photography. He doesn't mind when I yell, "Isn't that beautiful?" when I see a field or a sunset. He doesn't mock it. He likes farming, he likes fishing, and he likes to travel, and he likes carpentry. I know all these things about Ian, but what I really know about Ian is that he loves the credit union system. He loves his grandkids, his cabin, a good laugh, stories, and he loves Brenda. And that tells you a lot about a man. Congrats, Ian.
On behalf of the board, management, staff, I'd like to thank Ian for his dedicated service to not only our credit union, but to the credit union system in general. He always came prepared, expressed his opinion openly, honestly, and often, which are actually good traits for a board member. And personally, I'm going to miss his sense of humor, which Darlene has already mentioned. He kept us fairly loose at the board table, along with a few other people I won't mention. And not just that, but I'll miss when he was going to ask a tough question, he always opened his question like this. This may be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I would like to thank Ian for a close friendship. I've only known this man actually for 7 years since I've been on the board. And I have to thank him for his close friendship and his, I guess, his tutoring and a kick in the pants or whatever he gave me along the way to keep me in line and teach me the ropes on the board. So congratulations, Ian. I think it was 21 years on boards. So Brenda's to-do list is probably pretty long. You'll have lots of time to get it done. Thank you very much.
Well, they were way too kind. I wasn't that good to travel with, and I did get annoyed with Darlene wanting to stop sometimes and take pictures, but I tried to keep it under control. And I do have to thank Brenda, because she really was there all the time when I was gone lots and get home late, and she'd be there, and just always supportive, and thank you. And it went right to the end, because this was a hard decision for me, because I like this organization, invested a lot into it, but I've got 7 grandkids, and I'm getting older, and I just thought, I don't know if I need to leave forever, but I need to reset my life and kind of get some priorities. And we were in Mexico, and I'm really struggling with this decision. And Brenda must have got sick of me talking to her about it, because finally one day I said, Brenda, what am I supposed to do? She's leaning in a lawn chair, reading a book. She looks up over the book. Well, Ian, you married me, not the credit union. Kind of told me what her thoughts were. and as far as the organization goes, Russ Siemens and I were watching the video last year in Swift Current on the Mac, and Russ said to me, isn't this an easy organization to be proud of? Doesn't it make you feel proud to be a part of this? And I thought a lot about that afterwards, and I truly am proud of this organization. I truly am proud to see where it's grown from a lot of small communities to one large community. And probably most of all, I'm just extremely honored that the membership voted for me or allowed me to be a part of it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ian. We'd now like to call on Dan Johnson once again to discuss Innovation's plan for continuance as a federally regulated credit union.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. You may have heard me say this before, but I've always thought that technology was both friend and foe. And friend tonight because Lorene is watching via video from Swift Current and has indicated it's the only way she can see her husband. So that's good, I guess. And then foe is that you get an anonymous viewer saying, don't let Dan speak again, because anytime the guy doing the bylaws is a better session than the CEO report, that's evidence of maybe I should speed things up. So, friend and foe, gotta love technology. You guys may have had this card handed out to you. Please take some time to fill it out. I want to go through some slides, and I'm going to do my best to pace through them fairly quickly, although it's a very important piece of our future, so I want to spend enough time so that you guys have a good understanding of what we're up to, and then answer any questions that you may have. And so really what we're talking about here is the scenario where Innovation Credit Union is looking to become a federally regulated credit union. Currently, all the credit unions in the province of Saskatchewan are regulated by the Credit Union Deposit D Corporation. We do not have the legal ability to grow beyond our provincial walls in a proactive way. So what we want to do is create a scenario where we have the flexibility to take our value and move it beyond the provincial boundaries, move it beyond our region, and grow as an organization. And so I want to talk about some of those things and give you guys a strong understanding. We hope to have about 45,000 conversations like this over the next while as we go into the fall and have a vote, because we do need you guys to vote on this very important initiative. We need all of you to vote, and vote according to what you feel is the right thing. Okay, so take some time. We'll go through some slides. The first part of the presentation you've seen before if you've been at the prior AGM, because it's really talking about the disruptors that we've been monitoring for a long time. And a lot of those disruptors are a catalyst to why we're looking at becoming a federally regulated credit union. A few things on this slide just to kind of set the stage. Innovation operates in basically this side of the province. You can see where, maybe you can't see, but this gives you an idea of where our locations are. We're about the 3rd largest credit union in the province, about 20th in the country. We have about 400 people, and we operate in 24 locations. So that gives you an idea of some things that I want you to keep in mind as we move forward. We talked about our vision and mission already. Again, if you're to look at some of the elements of that vision and mission, things like wherever and whenever, responsiveness, those are some of the things that we are considering as we look to become a federally regulated credit union. The other thing I want you to think about and hold us accountable around is that as we move to consider this initiative, we have to make sure that we honor and respect and retain and maintain those who have made us successful. Because a lot of what we're up to here isn't necessarily about tomorrow or next year. What we're up to here is making sure that we're long-term viable, making sure that innovation is around for future generations, our kids and our kids' kids. However, in order for us to be successful, in order to ensure that we're successful in this initiative, we have to make sure that we honor what has made us successful so far, and the cooperative principles, the members of today, are so important. So the three disruptors that I've talked about at other annual meetings really hover around the massive change in consumer behavior. I'll talk a little bit about that, talk about competition, and I also want to talk about technology. Technology is both a driver, but it's also a catalyst, and I'll try and articulate that. And so what has happened with those three drivers in our industry and in our organization, what has happened is that we're now at a point in time in our industry is that we no longer have the luxury of kind of evolving or adapting to things. We now have to look at scenarios where we need to transform. And I'll talk a bit about that. So let's talk about competition. So in about 2012, when we had our annual meeting and also some of our staff events, I threw this slide up. And I said, how long would it be until some of these brands, some of these companies get into our industry, into the things that we do? And some of them were like, yeah, that could be. Some of them were not convinced. And then the next slide talked about or indicated or showed the actual press release of those companies getting into what we do. And keep in mind that those brands and those companies are bigger than countries. So if they really want to get into your industry, they will, and they'll probably do it pretty well. Especially because those brands are household names. People really like them, especially the younger generation. So when it comes to competition, we're not only dealing with the traditional competition, but we're also dealing with new entrants. As an example, in Canada, there's over 1,400 startups that are in the game of payments, just in Canada alone. So the competition is heating up from not just traditional means, but also non-traditional means. And this is another good example where there's over 12,000 fintechs also interested in what we do. So fintech is just a fancy way of saying a technology company that wants to do financial services. And today we have about 12,000 of those on the planet considering or getting into the things that we do. So really what I'm trying to paint here is a scenario that the competition is heating up. Do you remember that slide that we had in the first presentation, and it talked about our margin and what's happened? It's a great time to be a consumer. All this competition has allowed rates to be very effective for the consumer, and we actually think that's a good thing. We think that our members should have the best rate possible. All this competition really drives that. And again, it's something that we've acknowledged and we're working with and dealing with as an organization. So, for us, we don't see one of those fintechs or one of those payment startups coming in and just, taking care of the entire financial services industry, but bit by bit, we're starting to see the competition heat up, and it's a good thing for the consumers of Canada. So let's move into consumer behavior and talk about that a little bit. So there's a few things around this topic that I think we should share. One is around demographics. So when it comes to demographics, our region isn't necessarily growing as much as other parts of the province or other parts of the country. So the demographics in the region that innovation operates is different. So from the 2001 to the 2016, when we're starting to get in new information in the 2016 census, it starts to confirm the situation that we have. The other thing that we have across Canada is an aging membership. So the average age of the Canadian credit union member is 53. Seems fairly reasonable. However, 10 years ago it was 39. So for whatever reason, the credit union system in Canada hasn't really kept up with ensuring that they have a strong, diverse membership, as a part of the equation. At Innovation, it's a little bit different. We've launched things like the Freestyle and other things to try and curb that trend. So the average age at Innovation is about 47. However, a few years ago, it was around that 43, 44. So we're starting to see that drift to the right. So from a demographic perspective, it's something that we watch and monitor. And also recognizing that in our region, we just don't have the growth that other parts of the province and other parts of the country are experiencing. So again, from a risk perspective, it's definitely on the radar. The other thing that's happening is the rapid change in consumer behavior. And so at one point we used to think this change in behavior was just the millennials or just my kids. However, if we look at right across all of the segments, we're seeing huge change in consumer behavior. In fact, some of the fastest adopting groups are my mother and father-in-law, who are adapting technology a lot faster than others because they're just new into the game. So if you look at some of the things that we're dealing with as far as the new consumer or the future consumer, to make sure we align up effectively with the future consumer, we have to make sure that we're aligning extremely well. We believe that the credit union system and the things that we have on the go at Innovation line up extremely well with the future of the demographic profile. So as an example, this year it is estimated that the Gen Ys will surpass the boomers in earnings. And that's important to us because we, as an industry, have kind of rode the coattails of the boomers through their, their spending years and their saving years, and they're moving to the right. And if you look at Innovation and in where we need to be successful is to, again, line up effectively with the new consumer as they start to move into that age where they're borrowing things or saving for things, or they need some help in the financial services or some advice. So it's a very important aspect for us to understand this scenario and keep it real in that we have to understand what does it look like in our region relative to other parts of the province and also Canada. So what does it look like at Innovation? Right? So there's some statistics I provided that are more national or global in nature, but if you look at Innovation, this gives you an idea of the changing consumer behavior. So over 93% of the interactions that we have with our members are now digital. So we're seeing a little bit less foot traffic coming to our locations. However, we're seeing a lot more transactions happening from a digital perspective. And they could be more of the simple transactions, which is ideal. However, this is something that we've been monitoring and watching as an organization. So here's the profile of our deposit base. So just have a look at the situation at Innovation here where it's skewed to the right. And then remind yourself of the scenario where we also operate in a region where we're not seeing a lot of people come into our region, right? From 2011 to 2010, it was about a 1% increase over those number of years as far as increase in population. And also the age profile of the members in our region are again moving to the right. So as an example, at Innovation, if you were to take this slide here, as you can see, over half of our deposits are in this category, right? So if you look at even from age 70 and older, over 47% of our consumer deposits are in that category. This is somewhat typical for financial institutions, obviously, because the older you are, typically or theoretically you'd have more deposits or savings. However, it's exaggerated in our organization. So one of the things that we monitor would like to have is the flexibility to resolve some of this as we move forward as an organization. So personally, I'd like to see a profile that looks more like that, where you have a little bit better dispersion or less risk involved in the funding aspect of your organization. Looking at becoming a federal credit union gives us greater flexibility to deal with that situation. So going from our current profile to something that looks a little bit like that is exciting for our organization. Let's move into technology. I talked already about technology being both friend and foe. The story I always tell around that is when we were merging or coming together with East End Credit Union. we were doing our community visits and talking to the members about the value of becoming one credit union. And we're in a typical hall, very similar to the one in the town that I grew up with. Quite an old structure, hardwood floors. So I was going into the utility room to find an extension cord, and there was this elaborate thing that was coming into the utility room. So we're trying to figure out what it was, and what we found out what it was fiber. So attached to this community hall was a library, and SaskTel's mandate, or the government's mandate, is to have fiber into all of their libraries. So the first reaction was, well, this is ideal. East End now has fiber, which means our banking system's going to run great. We're going to have faster lineups, and it's going to be ideal. But then that quickly turned into a bit of a worry, because now with fiber, the world became extremely flat. Competition can come into East End overnight. They don't have to do all of what we've done for the last number of years, so instantly they're part of the competition equation. So that's the foe, or the negative part about innovation. However, it's something that we need to understand. It's something that we need to embrace. My view is that technology has actually dismantled core economic principles. The whole notion of niche, in my view, is being challenged. Even the oligopoly that the banks have, if you look at all of the fintechs and all of the payment startups, it used to be very difficult to get in the game of financial services, and that's no longer the case. So if you look at this continuum here, this is what it typically looked like. This is what technology would do to the different parts of history. But this is where we are now. As you can see, the rapid adoption and the influence technology has is creating exponential times. So when we talk about velocity and changing from the ability to change to the need to transform, that's what we're talking about. So technology is not only a driver, but it's also a catalyst at the same time. And just look at this statistic. So in the last 12 months, $14 billion has been invested into the fintech world. Again, more competitors for us to deal with. And just pause there for a sec. So here we are operating in the west side of the province, and we're doing quite well. Our NPS scores are up, we're growing as an organization, and that's with the competition being able to come into our region. However, because we're regulated the way we are, we do not have the ability to go out and take that value beyond our borders. It's kind of a very important aspect of the initiative and the reason why we're looking to become a federal credit union. So, in my view, technology has created a bit of an uneven or an unfair playing field for our organization, and it's something that we want to address. So we pick growth. We pick the option of growing and I guess embracing all of this stuff so that we can grow as an organization and deal with the things that we have to deal with as an organization. So we started a long time ago. We talked about re-engineering our entire company. We've built things that our members are going to look for. We've invested in technology that we now have the ability to leverage if we have the capacity or capability to go beyond our provincial walls. And so our view is that rather than to try and resist all of this technology and this change in consumer behavior, because it's not just about technology, right? It's about the competition. It's about changing consumer behaviors, the demand of the consumer. But we embrace all of that, and it's really helped us move things forward as an organization. So the whole notion of having a credit union headquartered right here, or doing business right here with the flexibility to do business beyond, is really what we're trying to say. And let's talk about a few groups that would be important to. I think it's important to the staff group. I think it's important to you guys as owners. I think it's important to talk about the impact or the reasons as a credit union. I also think it's important to talk about the impact as you as a member, because it is a bit of a unique scenario as you're an owner and a member of Innovation Credit Union. So from a staff group, so far when we're talking to our members and they're really, no surprise, but they're really passionate about, well, what's the impact to the staff? Because I get great service. The big reason why I deal at Innovation is because of the people, which is a great scenario to be in as an organization. So one of the questions they have is, well, okay, so if you go federal and you look at becoming, expanding beyond our current region, what does that look like? How is it going to impact the staff? Because as we move beyond our region or provincial walls, we plan to do this digitally. We don't plan to look at building locations across the country. We believe that we can do most of this digitally. Over time, we may look at micro locations and our mobile workforce. So the question is, well, what does it do? What's the impact to staff? So the reality is as we grow our organization, we're going to need our staff. We're going to need the staff that we have. We're going to need more staff than what we have. So a few years ago, we invested in technology that allows us to leverage our staff no matter where they are. So what we've created is a scenario where when you deal with this, and you see foot traffic decreasing in our locations, that frees up capacity. So we found a way to actually backfill that capacity if it's available. So as an example, let's say you're calling into our call center or you're videoing in, and we're full, our 20-some people are busy in the call center. We now have the ability to hunt out or find capacity somewhere in our other 20-some locations. So that technology has allowed us to actually increase the likelihood of making sure that we fulfill or ensure that the capacity in our organization is at the right level. And if we get to the point where that's at capacity, then we'll just add more people. So the response we've been providing to our members is it's actually a really good thing for us to look at some sort of a growth scenario beyond our current situation. As an example, our current 8-year plan, which includes both going federal and also other things as far as growth, doesn't include any change to our roster of locations. So that's an important consideration. The other thing that our 8-year plan considers, or I guess doesn't consider, is that our growth in that 8-year plan isn't going to be wildly increased because we have the ability or flexibility to go federal. It's still the same logical, prudent growth pattern. We just have more ability or flexibility to achieve those goals in the new environment. So what are some other reasons why we would consider becoming a federally regulated credit union? So I have fun with this. And I think you guys kind of know it as you read through it. So tell me what this is. What is a networked computer? It's a key element. Is more powerful than all of NASA in 1979. Same power as a $34 million computer in 93 created by Fujitsu. Who knows what this is? Celebrating their 10th anniversary the same time we are. Exactly. It's the smartphone. And this smartphone is addictive, it's ubiquitous, and it's transformational. And if you were to look at just in the near future, by 2020, 80% of all of us, all of the adults are going to have one of these. Remember how we talked about we have now 20-some thousand apps on the phones? We essentially are operating out of 20-some thousand locations as an organization just today. So by 2020, 80% of us will have one of these things. So if we're really talking about the channel or the branch of the future for those simple transactions being on your phone, then why would you stay regional or operate in this fashion? So when you look at the whole impact of that device that was showcased in January of 10 years ago, this is really the impact that it's had. So let's talk a little bit about going federal from a owner credit union perspective. And I grouped them together because, again, you are owners of innovation. And I think it's very important for you to ask questions with your ownership hat on, just as there'll be time to ask questions with your member hat on as well. So from an ownership perspective, from a credit union perspective, becoming a federal credit union allows us to live up to that vision and mission that we have. It ensures that long-term success. Remember how I talked about this decision not necessarily being about today or tomorrow. This decision is about our kids. It's about future generations. It's ensure that we're long-term viable as an organization. As you've seen in the first presentation, we're financially sound. We're a rock-solid organization. This allows us to continue down that path. It allows us to be a financially strong organization and have more flexibility to ensure that that happens. And again, it allows us to effectively manage the risk profile that all organizations have, especially financial institutions. A few things to consider, though, is that we will need your guys' guidance, right? So one of the things that this card allows us to do is get an understanding of how you guys are feeling about this. Give us some feedback. Are you supportive or kind of neutral? Do you want more conversation to happen? So if you could fill those out, I'd appreciate it. Because in the fall, we're going to try our best to get a representative vote. So credit unions struggle a fair bit when it comes to AGMs or annual meetings. We usually get, if we're lucky, 1% of our membership out. And sometimes there's voting at those events. Our goal is to get a lot more than that, because we believe that something this significant, something this substantial, requires a lot more than just 1% of our vote, or of our members, our owners, to come out and vote. We want it to be representative, meaning that we want to have a cross section of all of our membership to be voting and giving us the guidance, whether it's positive or whether it's a vote not to proceed. So over the next number of months, that's our number one goal, is to have a ton of conversations, to reach out, have sessions like this where we can talk about the whole initiative and what it means to you as a member, you as an owner. So not only will we need your blessing, but once that happens, we'll still need a few more signatures. We'll need the federal government, we'll need OSFI, we'll need our current regulator, which is the Credit Union Deposit Guarantee Corporation, and we'll also need the Financial Consumer Affairs Authority or the provincial government. So again, it's a multi-year journey we're on, but we do need to have great conversations with a lot of our members. The regulators will change. So today, the Saskatchewan credit unions are primarily regulated by the Deposit Guarantee Corporation. In the future, if a credit union becomes federally regulated, if Innovation becomes a federally regulated credit union, our new regulator will be OSFI. They're the same folks that regulate the banks. So again, something that you guys should know and consider. From a member perspective, what does it mean? Well, what it allows us to do is to effectively and have more confidence, more ability to continue with all of the great things that we do today. Same great people, but also the things that we built to align ourselves with what you guys are looking for, and also the things that, that align extremely well with the cooperative principles, those key differentiators. Having the ability to grow and evolve as an organization gives us greater confidence to be able to continue with those programs. So it's a very fundamental part of what we've built so far, but also we believe there's probably other things that we're going to need to build into the future. And again, having that ability, that solid ability gives us that situation. However, as a member, there is impact as well. So for an example, your guarantee, your deposit insurance will change. If Innovation becomes a federally regulated credit union, we will no longer be regulated, or our deposits won't be 100% guaranteed by the Credit Union Deposit Guarantee Corporation. We will now be under CDIC, which is the same that the banks have, which again is different than 100% guarantee. You'll now have a $100,000 deposit protection on a series of different accounts depending on your situation. So this is, again, a very important conversation we need to have with our members. Right now, about 83% of our members really won't be impacted by a change in deposit guarantee programs. However, there's still 17% that will. So we need to have conversations with all of those members so that they truly understand the impact to their current situation. And again, I talked about this. That's the other important stakeholder group that needs to be considered when we look at becoming a federally regulated credit union. So I'm very biased, and my view is that why would we create the best credit union on the planet and keep it regional? That's really the question that that we ask. We have all of these things that we built. We've worked very hard to align with the cooperative principles, and that really comes with the guarantee. Because the other question that members have and have had so far is, okay, well, are you going to take your eye off the ball, right? Are you going to go beyond the regionalness of your credit union and then forget about us? And that's certainly not the case. We have to make sure that we have a situation where we respect, we honor, and we retain all of those who have made us successful. and keep that, because that's what's made us successful. For us to walk away from that would just be non-prudent. So again, the guarantee that we provide our membership is that the reason we're doing this is so that we can have a higher likelihood of being able to line up extremely well with all of the things that have made us successful so far. Because really, it's good times to be in this game. And our view is that now is the time. On a solid footing in a financially sound situation, now is the time for us to look at situations like this. So I'm going to stop there and open up to questions, and then we can have further dialogue or discussion about this exciting initiative. We have one. So is this from you, Ian, or is this from... Okay, so the question is, how does going federal improve what technology can do for Innovation Credit Union? So over the last number of years, we've re-engineered our organization, and we've made sure, tried to build all of the channels that our current members and what we believe our future members will want from us. And the way we were able to do that was through ensuring that we have appropriate or prudent returns. Remember I talked about efficiency and appropriate returns? By becoming efficient, by having a solid organization, by generating the right type of profits, you have the ability to invest in that technology. Not having that, it becomes more difficult to do that. So as an organization with the ability to grow and evolve and not be challenged by regionalness, we believe that it gives us even greater flexibility, greater opportunity to invest in those current technologies that we have, but also some of the technologies that our members will want from us, some that aren't even potentially even thought about. Any questions from here while Ian writes out his next question? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're to look... Okay, yeah, good point. So the question is, if I summarize it correctly, is that if we have the blessing to go federal by all of the various parties, and over time we grow beyond our region, how does that impact the current situation that we have today? That support for the community, that the governance where we have governance from the community from our current region. So if you're to look at our current business plan, and again, there's a lots of benefit of being a financial institution, lots of benefit of being a credit union, because you're regulated heavily. You're regulated heavily, but also you've got a governance structure that allows for you to have just enough risk so that you can prudently grow as an organization. So when I look at our current plan that we provided to our organization and also the folks in Ottawa, that plan has logical growth. We don't want to get into a scenario where it grows way too much and then we lose track or lose the ability to do what we've done so far and that has made us successful. So there's lots of, I guess, thresholds or throttles in the plan that doesn't allow us to grow too vast too quickly. And we also have to make sure as we do that we're understanding, again, those things that have made us successful. The larger risk, in my opinion, is if you don't have the ability to grow beyond the current region, and if your region is kind of static, then some of the things that you're mentioning actually are challenged as well. Right? So, for example, 2 to 4% of our pre-tax profit goes back to our communities, goes back to our regions. In a growing organization, that just gets larger. So we have more ability to be able to support and be that corporate citizen. If we don't have the ability to grow as much, then some of those programs get challenged. Does that answer your question? Okay. Maybe we'll talk further after, or please come back to the mic. I think that's a very great, very important question. The next question from satellite location is, what is the backup plan or backout plan if going federal does not happen? So I guess the scenario is, can you go back? I don't know if we can go back if you're once a federal credit union. I think maybe the other question is, what's the contingency plan if if you go federal and things aren't working out? I'm not aware of any scenario where you can go back to becoming provincial, because really the whole notion of becoming a federally regulated credit union doesn't necessarily mean that you have to day one start to go beyond what you do today. So essentially what you could do is you could go federal, become a federal credit union, and continue operating in your region for the next period of time until you get that comfort level to start to move out. And that's really, if you look at our business plan, the design of our business plan. It's prudent growth as an organization. It doesn't mean that day one we just start to run amok and grow wildly across the country. There's lots of prudent theory in our overall plan. You have another one? Kent. Ian had a question. You might as well.
Hey, Dan, I have a question from a member that's sitting down here.
Sure.
He asked me to ask it for him. So I am overwhelmed with the idea. What stage is this idea at, and what steps are next?
Okay, so even though we've been talking about this initiative for a long time in our organization, we've done a lot of work with this initiative. It's fairly new to the scene. So in 2016, in the middle of 2016, we sent out a letter to the membership saying Innovation wants to be a federally regulated credit union by the year 2020. So that gives us a fairly, I would say, generous time frame to be able to understand all of the complexities of what we're up to. We're currently at a case now where we've built a business case. We've provided that with the potentially future regulators and our current regulators. And so we've had conversations with the folks in Ottawa. Our primary goal right now is to have conversations. So over the next 6 or 8 months, our current approach right now is to just have conversations with our members, make sure that they understand what we're up to, because I'd imagine you're not alone when you say the comment where this is a bit overwhelming, because again, it's a major initiative for our organization. And we're certainly not going to rush those conversations. And we have a lot of stage gates. We have a lot of people ensuring that we have effective conversations with literally over 40,000 members. And that's our overall goal. We certainly don't want to have conversations where we rush through the concept. And so as we move into the fall, if we're confident that we're at the right spot, then we'll actually call the vote of our membership. And we want to make sure that we have a lot of members out to vote. We just don't want to have a small few coming out to vote. The next question here is 17% of members' deposits are greater than $100,000. How do we fully understand the risk of a worldly market? So I think there's two elements to that. We have a lot of work done on the impact of going from the current insurance environment to the CDIC insurance environment. Well, what does that mean? As we're having our conversations with our membership, we're actually tabulating and understanding situations where we might have members that just are not interested in a different insurance environment than what we have today. So those sort of conversations are being tabulated and understood. Because again, even if we felt that we were going to have a positive vote, there could be a scenario where there's a good portion of those deposits that might not stay in organizations. We have to understand what that means for our organization. So that's one element. The other one is around, do we really understand the worldly market? And I would position it differently. I would say that today, even though we're operating regionally, the competition is on our doorstep. They get to come into our region and compete with us, and as you've seen a number of slides that indicate that, and we're winning. We're growing market share, we're growing members, we're profitable, we're a sound organization in that environment. We believe having access to the other 97% of Canadians And just a fraction of that market allows us to be in a more stable footing in the long term. Question?
Question, comment, of my understanding. Like, from the way I look at it, we've got the big banks and that here, and profits they make, a large majority of those profits go east. With this, what you're saying is that we're going to try and get profits coming from other areas and coming to stay here in the province. That's my understanding, am I right?
That's correct. Yeah. Right. So the last question was more of a comment or question around in the bank world. The banks operate in Saskatchewan, in our region, and they compete, and a lot of the profits go into kind of the head office located elsewhere in Ontario. And in this case, what we're articulating is that we will be a regionally based credit union with the flexibility to operate beyond our provincial walls. So again, jobs, profits would be similar to what it is today, right here in our region. So here's a question. How can you decide to go federal and grow at the same time? You decide your wealth business should remain local by withdrawing from a wealth QSO. So I don't think that the withdrawal from the wealth QSO was an effort to stay local. Actually, the withdrawing from that business arrangement was an effort to not get into a scenario where we were crystallized regional. And it's probably beyond what you guys are interested to hear about, but the arrangement that was identified in the wealth QSO was a situation where any business that was brought to the QSO outside of our region would not necessarily accrue to Innovation Credit Union. So our decision to stay out of that scenario was that if we were in that scenario, we wouldn't have the ability to expand wherever we wanted to. So we actually want the ability to have a flexible environment in all aspects of our business. And the other part of the decision with the wealth QSO was that it didn't line up extremely well with prudent practice with respect to procurement of a pretty fundamental part of your business. So if you're to outsource a part of your business and give up control, then it doesn't really score very well with how we want to approach the wealth business. We want to have a lot of control over the look and the feel and the people that are part of our equation, and in that other environment, it didn't necessarily provide that. So we made a business decision to have a wealth QSO part of the innovation family and keep it that way. As we move forward and go beyond the provincial walls, that also will have that flexibility.
Next question, Dan. Are any other credit unions doing this nationally? This question comes from Meadow Lake.
Okay, so we have a question from Meadow Lake, and that is, are there any other credit unions looking at what Innovation is looking at? There is. I think there's a number of credit unions curious about the opportunity. We have a credit union in the East Coast that is already a federal credit union, so it's Uni Financial, so they became a federally regulated credit union in 2016. And there's also another credit union in British Columbia, Coast Capital, that is also looking at the same thing. They're a bit farther than we are, so they've already had the vote with their membership, and now they're just working on what that means with the various stakeholders, like the regulators of British Columbia and also the regulators in Ottawa. So there's basically 3 that are in the workings. Well, 2 that are in the workings and the one that already is federal.
Follow-up question, Dan from Meadow Lake. Has Innovation Credit Union worked with any other Saskatchewan credit unions to do this jointly? And if so, what was the results?
So the question, if it wasn't heard, are there any other credit unions in the province that are interested in working on this with Innovation? So we had conversations with all the credit unions that wanted to hear about it. So we had a meeting in Regina and Saskatoon. We invited all the credit unions to talk about the whole initiative that we're undertaking. Again, it was an effort to just describe the things that we're doing. It wasn't an effort necessarily to say, hey, you guys should do this as well. So it was more of an information session. At the end of those sessions, we did get together and say, hey, what would it look like if we all got together as a system? And we kind of had a summary document from that, but that's as far as it went. There's very limited interest in any further situation where other organizations are looking at the same thing. As far as we know, again, we're autonomous organizations, so we can't expect to understand the timeline or the approaches other credit unions have or are on with respect to looking at something like becoming federal. Okay, well, great questions. And if I didn't effectively answer them, let's have more conversation after the meeting is adjourned. And again, our overall goal here is to have strong conversations with all of our membership so they have a really strong understanding of what we're up to so they can make an informed decision when they come out to vote in the fall. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. First of all, I have to apologize for introducing our next person to come to this stage. Glenn Ferguson is from Sask Central, and when I hit Sask Central in the introductions, I missed Glenn's name. So I apologize for that, Glenn. But I now call upon Glenn Ferguson, Manager of Member Relations with Sask Central, to make a presentation.
Thanks, Bruce. I thought for a moment there I had a musical introduction. That was getting kind of exciting. And thanks for allowing me to be part of your celebration of your 10th anniversary. On behalf of Sask Central, I'm really pleased to be here tonight to recognize the 10th anniversary of the formation of Innovation Credit Union on January 1st, 2007. Drawing on already successful credit unions, the amalgamation created a new credit union with a vision for the future and a most appropriate name, Innovation Credit Union. And we've seen lots of examples of that tonight. So have you seen, your credit union has been very innovative and continues to be on the forefront of changes to how the Canadian credit unions operate to best serve their members. So we look forward to an exciting future and many more years of exemplary service to the members of Innovation Credit Union. So to the members, the staff, the management, and the board of Innovation Credit Union, our congratulations on your 10th anniversary. And I have a little plaque of commemorating the event. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll ask if there's any other business that needs to come before this meeting. Okay, hearing none. We have a short video presentation on our I-2020, and then we'll make some door prize draws.
At Innovation Credit Union, it's our mission to provide world-class financial services wherever you are, whenever you need us. We're proposing an exciting change that will make it easier to do just that. By 2020, Innovation envisions a credit union headquartered right here in Saskatchewan with the ability to provide services across this great country. And we are asking you to say yes. What will it mean for you as an owner of Innovation Credit Union? Say yes to long-term success. Becoming a national credit union eliminates our regional and provincial boundaries so we can promote our products and services outside of Saskatchewan. We can level the playing field and keep pace with the competition, technology, and changes in our members' needs to ensure long-term success and sustainability. Say yes to national reach with local heart. We're proud of our Saskatchewan roots and cooperative values, and that will never change. Although we're transitioning to a national credit union, we're not going anywhere. you'll still have access to the same great products and services delivered by the same friendly professionals. Our expansion is digital in nature. We do not plan on opening branches across Canada. This means keeping jobs right here in Saskatchewan. Say yes to financial security. Thanks to you, innovation is financially sound and stable. Saskatchewan credit unions are already held to high standards, but as a nationally regulated credit union, innovation will follow even more rigorous national and international standards. It's what our members and owners deserve. What will it mean for you as a member of Innovation Credit Union? Say yes to shared success. Transitioning to a national credit union lets us continue to offer the member rewards that set us apart, like our no-fee account, patronage payments and dividends totaling over $21.5 million since Innovation's inception, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars we invest in community support each year. Our member rewards program will grow with our shared successes, and that benefits us all. Say yes to better solutions. Your yes vote will let us maintain a relationship with you and serve new members across the country who like what Innovation has to offer. Doing business across Canada allows us to continue to develop better products and solutions to meet your needs while keeping you connected wherever you are. We're asking you to vote yes in the fall of 2017. Becoming a national credit union won't happen overnight and cannot happen without your support. We encourage you to stay informed. Visit our Innovation 2020 website, sign up for regular email updates, attend our annual meeting or information sessions. By delivering innovative products, services, and technologies, we can live up to our name and continue to be the world-class, homegrown credit union you know and love. This decision not only provides you with continued outstanding service, it positions your credit union for future generations. Vote to continue on the path of shared success. Say yes to innovation.
One more call for any more business tonight? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion of adjournment. John Walakachi.
And the winner is from Meadow Lake, Cliff McKay.
Cliff McKay from Meadow Lake has won a $500 gift certificate. Thank you for attending tonight's AGM and for your ongoing patronage. We'd like to also thank the Decker Center and the Qplex for the fantastic facility and excellent food. Thank you to Inland AV and Bamboo Shoots for the successful live streaming to our staff and to our staff volunteers. Please stay and enjoy appetizers and beverages out in the lobby. And is that it for door prizes? All right. Okay, so thank you very much for attending. Hope to see you again next year, and please bring a friend or two.